to the Reveal the Legend Within Story Festival and our world-class speakers interview series. Today's guest is the incredible Jean Wolfe. Now, I met Jean in Los Angeles, despite the fact we actually live half an hour away from each other. So it was a delight to have to travel halfway around the world to meet someone as special as her. And we do have a lot of other things in common. We both come from the creative world. But where we're going to start our talk today is when Jean found herself in the same position that so many of us found ourselves in by surprise, a single mother, and very unexpected. So, Jean, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Melanie. It's lovely. It's great to be here. Thank you so much. Yes, as you say, it was a massive surprise to suddenly be single and with 4 teenage children. So I was invited to a retreat. Really, it was a holiday, and there were options that you could choose. I could have done woodworking or cookery or something, and I just thought, hey, I'm going to do a writing course. The first week of the writing course, the big famous writer didn't arrive because she wasn't well, and a very nice guy took us all into an upstairs room, and it was quite a small room, and there were lots of interesting things on the walls. And one day we'd write about faded flowers, and another day we'd write about some weird thing you'd see on the wall. And it was really fun, and we enjoyed it. And I think that was the precursor to when the author arrived, who is actually a woman called Sue Townsend, who wrote the Adrian Mole stories. And she came, and the minute she came, suddenly it was different. We went out of our little room, and we went out into the Greek island, and we sat at coffee tables miles away, miles apart from each other. And the sense of having lots of space, I think, was quite important, because I found myself at a table with nobody nearby. I had a small drink of very strong coffee and a drink of water, which I think is a magical combination. Very good for the muse. And I sat there and I had no idea what I was going to write. And suddenly I burst into tears. Tears poured out of me, and my hand wrote words on the page, really without my brain even being involved at all. And I looked back at it afterwards, and I was completely astonished. And in many respects, it was actually a metaphor for what I'd gone through, although it was expressed in very different terms. And that was the first time that a poem just came up and, grabbed me by the neck and said, I'm going to be written through you. So it was a lovely and unexpected experience, for which I was very grateful. And that was the beginning of me writing things.
You've told me that the poem wrote you. And so you almost were created in this experience. And that's what you do most of the time now, is you write poems personally, you write poems to help people find their stories and things like that. You talk about a spark of you.
Yes, I think expressing one's spark is the big thing for me. I think a lot of people in life go through not expressing what's really, really special about them. And very often they don't know, because A, it comes easily, and B, you think you might be a bit stupid. So, especially in a business context, or if you're trying to impress somebody at a social gathering, you'll keep yourself quiet. And if you're not a brilliant raconteur, you won't tell the story or hold the stage. And we tend to keep our spark hidden. So I find, and my experience has been, when we let our spark out, like your dog, other people really, really respond to it. And in fact, it gives them permission to, dig down into theirs. And it's not always something that comes instantly, rather like for me, I didn't decide I'm going to write the poem, but I think it was quite a long process of thinking. It was a long gestation period.
Well, I think, it depends on how long we've hidden ourselves, doesn't it? That's how long it'll roughly take us to get us back to ourselves. But
yes.
You almost had just created the conditions for it by deciding to do this for yourself. Because my understanding is that, post all of that disruption, when the whole world tumbles apart, you'd sort of decided to claim back a little bit of yourself, but not knowing what it was particularly, but drawn to the writing retreat with Sue Townsend.
Yes. It was like, oh, there must be something to excavate under here. Obviously I want to sort out why things happened because it was very bizarre. And so maybe I'll find some clues, maybe I won't, maybe the exploration itself is of value, just to do it and be in the presence of something like that. I think it just brings you to life, brought me to life.
Well, I think you also say that the exploration is of value. Even if it just turns out to be exploration, it's of value.
It's not for a result necessarily.
That's not the setting out point.
Yeah.
And that's when you'll have the chance of finding this, what you call the spark of you.
Yeah. I think it's like an undiscovered jewel that you're not necessarily looking for.
How beautiful.
Sometimes we have a brilliant purpose in mind and actually something completely separate happens on the way, which doesn't invalidate wanting the purpose. It's just that something else happens. And so, your whole mind is focused on something. And then when we just let it happen, we let our subconscious know what's going on, the most wonderful and magical things happen.
And so, I completely know and trust and believe you because I come from the creative world too. So we just are like, this is how everyone should be living, But your story is magical because you also, you sort of straddle the creative world and this world that makes us shrink, this world that makes us hide our spark, the businessy world, or, the normal world. And so, you have this gorgeous story of the day you backed yourself in a business context. Tell me about that day you went to the conference.
Yes. Well, I was invited to a conference. I was pretty pleased with myself. Hooray, I've arrived. I'm talking at a women's networking conference. Oh, I must be important. All of which is fun, because we need all that kind of stuff. It's the yang energy, really. Yes, let's go for it. So I was going to come up with hard-hitting strategies. I was going to rock them out of their seats. It was going to be wonderful. And then, actually, the more I thought about it, the more bored I got with my ideas. So one evening, I was just leafing through a notebook, and I came across a story I'd written about my daughter when she was going through lots of exams. And I noticed I'd put it in a fairy story, and she was like Rapunzel, and all the things she wrote and all the exams that she did effectively gave her long hair, and she could escape from the tower and move on to the next bit of her life. And I thought, wow, I wrote that. That's, again, that's rather interesting. So it sparked me into writing another story. So I just, without thinking, I started to write a fairy story about what the person who became, she was a business owner. And yes, she met a prince on a white horse coming down the street, literally the high street. But he turned out to be a geek, and he solved all the technical problems that she couldn't work out. And as I was writing this, and I just wrote it for fun for me because I got half an hour and I thought I'll write it. Anyway, the deadline was approaching fast for the conference, and I was suddenly started to get a bit worried, what's going to happen? What shall I do? And I suddenly thought, well, actually, I've written about blogging, I've written about doing websites and things like that. So perhaps I'll stick this into the conference. And there were two things really. A, it had come easily to me, therefore it was worthless. And B, I was pretty sure that everybody else in the conference was going to be quite earnest and very sort of on message and, all very kind of proper. Anyway, I couldn't think of anything else to do. So I thought, well, I'll go with this. And luckily you didn't have to tell anybody what you were doing, or I might have chickened out of it. Anyway, on the morning of the conference, oh my gosh, thousands of people were taking notes. It was very earnest, loads of questions. And honestly, my heart was failing me. I thought, what am I doing here? They're going to laugh at me. This is so stupid. Anyway, I've got nothing else to do. I was reading a piece of paper as well. It wasn't the most amazing professional appearance on the world. Anyway, I started reading the story. And I could feel the audience feeling into the problems of the woman with the business. And I could feel the atmosphere in the room changed. And the audience became very quiet. Nobody took any notes. And I felt, as I was reading it, that I was reading it and I could also see myself reading it. I had a kind of slightly otherworldly, maybe you could call it a flow state. I had a sense of time didn't matter, space didn't matter, and I was just there reading, and there was a massive connection with the audience. And I finished it, and afterwards I did think a bit, oh dear, well, I hope that was all right. And then people came up to me and said, that was the bit of the day that I really remembered. Wow, I feel like writing a blog now. And then the thing I really wanted to do, I wanted to write it from the point of view of not a wicked stepmother, who's always a wicked stepmother. I had a stepmother. I wanted to write a story from the position of a loving stepmother, because in the story, the woman marries the geek, but he has 2 children. So she becomes the stepmother. And it was quite interesting. I got a few questions saying, well, why did you tell it from the point of view of the stepmother? Which was quite fun, because actually then we could engage in conversation at a surface level as well as everything else. So, really, that was, again, like going, as you say, going into a world where what I would contribute, I felt would not be welcome. And in fact, it was,
It was exactly what everybody needed or wanted, or what they could resonate with. Exactly. They could feel the humanity in it.
Yes, exactly.
It just reminded them of what it was like to be human.
Yes. And if you'd said, would you like to have a story? They'd have probably all said no. Do you know what I mean? No, I want tips.
They would have felt
blah, blah,
silly
blah.
choosing it.
Yes, they would have said, yes, exactly. So I was kind of sneaked in, which was perfect, I think.
I mean, this is what I say, is that our world has reduced stories. That it's a reductionist approach to stories, that we call it entertainment or distraction, or just for bedtime and children. Or, propaganda is using it badly. And it's a really ancient power that when we speak in story, we literally can make people cry with mere sound, or black ink on white paper, or flickering images.
Yeah.
We can make
we're all
feel.
we're all back with the tribe around the fire, aren't we? And the saber-toothed tigers, in the distance. And we're safe.
Well, and this is how we used to explain the world. I mean, whether we explain God as Adam and Eve, or a blue elephant on a lotus flower, or however, story was how we explained our experiences, all of them, to ourselves. And that's really what you've tapped into is, and you're saying it's a spark, which is like life. It's literally the coming into being.
Yeah.
So you are now effectively a poet. I mean, briefly, you decided to put poetry on Facebook, and that's back in the day.
And that again was deeply scary. It was a mistake first time I did it, and I was terrified. And then, in fact, I got lots of lovely comments, and so I will do more with it, because it does connect with people, I think. But the point is, I've done it for me, really, often out of things that have gone wrong, because a lot of our life is missteps and things that aren't right, rather than the mega big success story.
Well, I always have to tell my children that it's only a mistake if we don't learn from it.
Yeah, exactly.
So we could hardly leave this conversation today without a poem. But first of all, what one thing would you like people to take away from this conversation?
I think that your own spark is something of immense preciousness, immense value, and the journey to finding it may be a bit of a roundabout journey. And I think you have to look after yourself as you go into it, and don't worry if you think other people may not like it, because actually they will.
Yes, well, when we please to everybody else, we end up not liking ourselves. That kind of
exactly
thing.
If that happens, then that's the real killer. But very often we're just cautious, we're cautious.
Yeah. You're so generous. What we're going to do is we're going to leave this conversation with your poem. So all we're going to say is goodbye afterwards. So I need to say the preliminary stuff now, which is so looking forward to having you on the festival. Really hope that people will come and hear your story in full and take a workshop with you. So we'll see everybody at the festival. But now, Jean, introduce your poem and then magic us away. It's a very special poem. It's one of my favourites. And we'll say goodbye.
Lovely. Thank you, Melanie. This is called An Idea Has Come to You. And just to relate it to the context, often we think we must act on an idea straight away. So, an idea has come to you. A small white feather of an idea flew to you while you were walking, driving, or cooking, or in the shower. You might have missed it and hustled on, but now you choose to listen. It's in the palm of your hand, white and fluffy, shining in sunlight, a baby of an idea. It doesn't need heavy brush strokes in bright colours. You don't have to splash it on your website or make it Insta. Don't give it an over-the-waterfall cliff edge leap to see if it will fly and then run, terrified. It's not going to save you from all that's wrong, nor make you rich and happy forever. It's an exciting little idea that needs nurture. Take the first small steps and let the rhythm touch you both. How wonderful that the idea flew to you, chose you alone at this moment.
Absolutely lovely.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you
really
for this
looking
today.
forward. Thank you.
And we'll see you on the other side.